Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about treating yourself like a toddler. Join us as we discuss setting limits, indulging in our preferences, appreciating the small things, and much more. Let's get started. Listeners, a few months ago we did an episode on treating yourself like a professor. And today we're going to go in the opposite direction and talk about treating yourself like a toddler. This concept comes from Gretchen Rubin's Happier podcast, and she has different episodes like this, treat yourself like a professor, or a toddler, or a dog. But this particular one comes from episode 7 in 2015. So I don't know if you guys noticed that when I sent you the clip, but that's almost a decade old.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah, so that aired in April of 2015, so it's 9 years old, but I think the idea still holds. And I think that she kind of wants people to think about treating themselves in other ways, professor, toddler, dog, because I think that we sometimes are kinder and give more grace to those kinds of situations than we do to ourselves. And so if we can get a different perspective, we can be more helpful about looking at ourselves, and it increases our happiness to treat ourselves in a kinder, more compassionate way. What do you guys think about these ideas?
Well, I also think to take it back a step further, she said she got the idea from the author Anne Lamott. Just to think of yourself in the third person, like Anne Lamott is an author. So she said, for example, when somebody asked her to speak somewhere, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Anne Lamott can't accept your invitation to speak because she's writing a book and she needs to keep an open schedule." Like, I think the idea is originated in that we think we see more clearly how other people should act than ourselves.
Yes.
So it's like, if you can see yourself outside of yourself, it just is more apparent of what you should be doing.
Yes. I know I appreciated her verbiage and terminology and using this. Like, she says it in a way that I can understand it and take it in. Like, if somebody were to say, "Oh, give yourself grace," I'd be like, well, yeah, of course I do. But she's saying this in such a logical, practical sense that I appreciate. I feel like it's a lesson I can more learn and take in, instead of, saying like, cut yourself some slack, or, put yourself first. Like, to me, those words don't mean anything to me. But treat yourself, like a toddler or a dog or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. For some reason, this makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. Like, whereas the author originally said, just think of yourself in the third person, Gretchen took it and said, well, give yourself an identity, another identity to help, even narrow it down.
Right.
Well, and I think that this one in particular, the title of the episode, or the title of her little section of the episode, wasn't even treat yourself like a toddler. I don't know if you noticed, it was indulge yourself like a toddler, which I think indulge is different than even treat. And so I really like that way of saying it, because I think a lot of times that's what we do to toddlers. We indulge them. We indulge their little preferences and their little ideas about things and their little comforts. And I think that we should maybe look at how we can indulge ourselves in the same way.
Right.
I didn't think of it that way.
That's a great way to put it, because some of the things I thought of, I do see as indulgences. So love it.
All right. Well, I was thinking about toddlers, and I have a 4-year-old. So a 4-year-old granddaughter. So she's not really a toddler anymore, but we're just barely out of that stage. And then I have a 2-year-old granddaughter who is definitely within the toddler range. And I was thinking about how quick I am to indulge them. Now, I am their grandmother, so of course I'm going to be more indulgent than the mom. But just the fact that, like, it's so fun to indulge them. And so I tried to think about that in terms of, is it fun to indulge myself if I'm treating myself like a toddler? Like, if they have a preference about something, I don't think, well, that's super annoying and I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm like, oh, that's going to bring a smile to their face. Yes, let's do that. And so do we think about ourselves in that way? I tried to start thinking about, like, how do I treat Pepper and Chapel? Okay, now what if I was going to treat myself that way?
Oh, Oh, I like that.
Okay. I did not go that direction at all.
No?
That's so funny.
Okay.
No, I saw it as know my limits. Like, yes, I'm more mature than a toddler. I've learned to be flexible and easygoing in some situations, but I still have like the same basic needs as a toddler. And I'm probably going to be, like Gretchen said, easier to be around if I know my limits.
Yes. Yes.
You know, because like a toddler, when you're with a toddler, you're always thinking an hour or two ahead, like, okay, we got to get home for nap time, or like, we better have some snacks before there's a meltdown, or if they don't get enough sleep tonight, it's going to be bad tomorrow, you know. So you're always thinking about like, okay, they cannot reach their limit. We've got to prevent that at all cost.
Right.
So things continue to run smoothly and they're pleasant to be around.
For the most part. Yeah.
Well, yeah, as much as you can control
Well, we have learned some skills through the years, you know, to how to, you know, combat our tiredness or our crankiness, or when we don't want to be someplace, or when we have to do something we don't want to do. And toddlers don't have that. Like, you know how they feel, you see it on their face, you hear it. You know, even if you're like, shh, we're in a restaurant. No, there's no shushing. Like, it's very evident what they're feeling. And so, thankfully, we can have that maturity and self-control. Like, don't lose that. But also, I love the conversation to kind of recognize what is happening and to pay attention to it and combat that.
Well, let's talk about indulging our inner toddler. So what was the first thing that you thought about for inner toddler? Julie, do you want to go first? Because I know that you're the one that brought this topic to our attention.
Okay. Well, at first, like, the obvious things came up, and then I had fun thinking of like deeper things. But the very first thing that comes up when you think of a toddler for me was they need structure, and I need structure, and then that can really cover eating, sleeping, resting, you know, those kind of things. But for me, I need structure. And, you know, and I thought, well, why do kids need structure? And it helps them, it kind of helps take away uncertainty. And then it gives them a sense of security. It helps them focus on what they're doing right now in the moment. And then it helps them to look forward to things. So those are all reasons that I like structure. I like to have repeat things through the day, through the days of the week. And that's been a little hard for me right now. Like, after John's passing, I feel like I am living the life of a toddler with some really permissive parents.
Okay.
I'm an unsupervised toddler right now.
Okay.
You're not sure where your boundaries are.
Yeah. Or like, you know, a toddler always goes for the wrong thing. You know, like, I want this candy before dinner. I want to eat all the chips before the meal comes. I want to have the sugary drink or whatever, you know, like, so I feel like that has happened a lot, you know, choosing the thing that's not the best always, like, as far as food and getting rest and all that. So, yeah, like,
really? I was just telling myself to choose the higher self this morning from that book. Choose your higher self, not the lower self that wants instant indulgence and gratification.
Right.
Like, here's just a really practical example. Like, I know I get grumpy if I don't eat, you know, so I know to carry snacks around and not skip meals. But like, now I just don't go to a restaurant that you have to put your name on a list and wait 2 hours to eat. I just don't do that anymore. That is no fun to me. I either have a reservation or I go to a counter service restaurant. So I just know myself. I know my limits. That does not sound fun to me. Waiting to eat.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you said, do you feel like you're living with permissive parents? And I was thinking about how even I respond to you now. So because I know that you're going through grief and a really hard time, no matter what you say as your friend, I would be like, oh, that's perfectly fine, Julie. You do what you want. I feel like probably everybody in your life is doing that, because everyone feels like, well, this is a really hard time for her. Should we really encourage her to draw any limits? Whatever she wants is fine. But taken to an extreme,
right, that
can really feel not good to you, because if nobody's encouraging you to have structure and do the things that you know are right, and I think that John would have definitely been encouraging you to do that.
Yeah.
after you had some indulgence, that then there's people are too afraid to say, yeah, Julie, you really need to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that perspective that people are probably afraid to say anything. I mean, and I haven't like gone off the rails or anything, but I mean, but yeah, there is a fine line there of getting up and doing and then indulging yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny that Julie started out with structure, because the very first thing that popped in my mind when you said, to treat myself like a toddler was nap time.
Yeah.
Can I please have a nap time?
Mm-hmm.
Quiet time. It doesn't matter. Can I go to my room? Can I just shut the world out? Can you please lock me away for a couple hours all by myself?
Right. Now we want nap time.
Nap time. Can I go to bed at 7:30 at night? I remember putting the kids to bed by 7 or 7:30 every night, and I'm just like, they will not function well if they're out past their bedtime. And y'all,
Right.
it was all about the sleep for me.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about indulge your inner toddler. And last week, my daughter said, the girls there are always just running through their coloring books. So I said, oh, I'm going to order some on Amazon. And so I saw this little connect the dot. And I thought, oh, Pepper would love a connect the dot book. And I said, how many numbers do you think she could do? And Abigail said up to 10. So the book came in the mail this week. It probably has 15 pages of like 1 to 10 little things that you would draw and color in. And I thought, oh my goodness, she is gonna love this. Just as much as if I had told her we're going to Disney World next week. Like for a toddler, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as thrilling to get a connect the dot coloring book as it is to say you're taking them to an amusement park. And I was thinking about that for ourselves. Like, are we delighted, or am I delighted by the small things? Like, do I appreciate going out and sitting on my new swing? And do I appreciate a new book coming in at the library that I've been waiting for, and now I get to sit down and read it? Or do I appreciate the fact that I don't have to cook dinner tonight because someone invited us over, or everyone told me they're not going to be home, so now I don't have to cook, or whatever? Like, maybe just like indulging those small things. Like, are we stopping enough to appreciate the tiny parts of life? So I feel like that is something that I could do more like a toddler, be awed by the very, very simple.
Yeah, I agree. I had said a toddler needs to be outside and have playtime.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need time outdoors and in nature. And when you're with a toddler, you're always pointing out, like, look at this cool rock, look at this flower, this butterfly. And so, like, why not do that for ourselves, like you said? And so getaways and adventures are really important to me right now. And right now we have this little bird nest that built a nest. The birds built a nest on my trellis, and it's at eye level off my porch. No branches, no trees. It's just right there. So I've watched them lay the eggs. I've watched them hatch. I've watched them feed the birds. And now one has left the nest. And it's like, I can't wait to get, in fact, I can see them from here. I can't wait to get back out there because one's on the ground now. And the mom still comes to feed it. And the dad, it's like, I've learned all this about birds. And that's something I might have missed if I wasn't out there.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
I do love what both of you guys said. And Maria, I really appreciate that word delight. And that's something I feel like the Lord has been putting into my life. I see it in scripture that we should delight ourselves in the Lord. But I appreciate also just the readiness to deal with the emotions that you're having, to give all of yourself to the excitement as much as we give all of ourselves over to the stress. And so I think having we've talked about this before, having as much words for the gratitude as we do when we're struggling. And so I know, Marie, just the other day, it was very simple, but I'd asked for your address and you wrote me back your address. And I said, don't you love writing your new address? I mean, that was something that like, it took you a long time to move. And I remember you wanting to move for a long time. And and I just could imagine you being so happy about writing in your new address. Like, yes, this is my home.
Yeah, but when you asked me that, I texted back and said I never thought about it. So obviously I need practice appreciating a small delight like writing a new address.
That reminds me of like, What If It's Wonderful? Like when she said things, that we have to be there to celebrate too, even little things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'll think about it now, Marie.
Oh,
And
sure.
I've just,
Yeah.
I've just moved enough that is something that I delight in. Especially moves are hard, and once you finally get to the point where you're in your house and you're settled, you're like, yes, this is my home.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing I was thinking about toddlers was that they don't want to share, that they're very selfish. Well, they can be very selfish. They're not always selfish, but if they want something and it's theirs, they don't want to share it. And they're very hard to talk into sharing anything. And I was just thinking, like, could that apply to us?
Yeah, like we've talked about before. I think, Mindy, you've said, like, the kitchen's closed or mom is done. Mom, like, or don't talk to me right now. Like, I had quiet times in the car. Like, yeah, I think that that's a healthy thing to draw some lines and say this is okay now and this is not okay now. Yeah, as far as your availability, especially as a mom.
Right.
Because you could just be on 24/7 and that's not healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
I do know. So you guys know I volunteer at the pregnancy center, and I've been talking with the people that I volunteer with there for a couple weeks, and the lady that kind of like organizes all of us has asked me, and to actually not ask, but pretty much told me like, hey, I know this is the week of graduation. We would totally understand if you can't make it. And every time I'm like, oh, I'm totally there. Like, I'm definitely going to be there. Like, please let me come. I need to do something else. And she's like, okay, I mean, you're welcome to come, but also just know I understand it's a busy week. And so literally, I was like, yes, I'll be there. Yes, I'll be there until a couple of days ago. And I'm like, you were right.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, and she's older and wiser, and I just appreciate her so much. But she knew going into it that, would be a kind of a wild week. And I just appreciate that she saw that coming even before I did. And then for me to finally give a voice to it and recognize it, I just need to open my eyes and say, yeah, actually, I need to. Could I do it? Yes. Should I do it? No.
Right. One thing that I thought about was, a toddler, when they're overstimulated, that is not usually going to end well. Like, I know when my daughter visits, everybody kind of just descends here on them, and it's just hide and go seek and laughter and giggles and tickling. And there's usually food, and there's usually special foods. And I don't know, bedtime gets really hard when you see the toddler just getting worse, especially if they got here close to bedtime. And everybody, of course, wants to see them. And it's like, it just is like the overstimulation, and it just makes it really hard. And I thought that is something that I've been experiencing lately. And, I love being around people and I want to be around people, but I still have to find a balance. Like too much time, too much noise, too much of a crowd kind of makes me, I don't know, restless and anxious. And so, I've told you I've been trying to say yes to everything, just to get out and be with people and to try new things. But I'm starting to kind of come where I've learned what I can and can't handle. And like, this is a great example is, I've loved to play pickleball here. I mean, it's available almost every day of the week. I've done, some open plays or round robins, but I started to find myself like dreading it before I went. And I thought, why am I dreading it? Like, these are lovely people. It's a fun game.
Right.
It's free. I can walk there. It's like everything is like ideal. But I realized like every time I was going, I was meeting and talking with 20 new people. Like you play for 15 minutes and then, okay, switch it up. Here's 3 new people I need to meet and remember their name. And then they ask me about my life and like, what do I tell them or do I not? Like, do I tell them what's going on? Because you don't want to dump that on somebody at a pickleball court. But yet I always feel like if I don't say anything, they're going to think, what's wrong with her?
Right.
So I'm just learning that I'm better in small groups where people know me, know a little bit about me, because the overstimulation was just too much. The constant meeting and greeting, so I've just learned that that's a limit that I've realized.
Yeah.
Right.
I just saw on Clarissa Mull's Instagram, we've talked about her before. Her husband died several years ago, and she has written a book on grief. But on her Instagram yesterday or the day before, she had this little reel where she was talking to someone, and one of the things she was saying was how hard it was to say over and over again to new people, oh, my husband died. Like, or I have to close this bank account because my husband died, or I have to do this because my husband died. And every new person, and like you get tired of having to share that,
But yet if you don't share it, you feel like these people don't know me.
Right.
It's weird.
But it's a lot to carry your own emotion. And then when you tell somebody your story, then you're having to carry their emotion. And there's going to be a reaction and that it's going to be hard. And so it kind of takes you there because they're hearing it for the first time, even though you have said it so many times. And so that's really wise of you to be able to kind of look at things and just say, during this season, maybe I need to just not have to tell my story over and over to new people.
It's like a toddler. I want to be out there. I want to,
right.
I want to do it all. But I realize it's not been good for me right now.
It's good for you to just show up and be Julie right now. Well, one aspect I thought about of a toddler is play dates.
Oh.
And
they need supervision.
There's a lot that goes into play dates, and most of it is teaching your child how to be a nice friend. It's teaching them how to share. It's teaching them how to play nice with others, to give, to take, to share their toys, to clean up their toys, and it teaches them to actually apologize. And these are all skills that I wanted to talk about. But there are going to be conflicts that happen with toddlers when you have a play date. It's going to happen every single time. But teaching them to apologize out loud. Like I remember telling my kids, say you're sorry. Sorry. Well, what are you sorry for? Like, tell them you're sorry for, hitting them or whatever they did. And so I appreciate that skill though. And I think sometimes it can get lost, apologizing out loud, saying the words, and hopefully we have the maturity and the love for the other person to say what we're sorry for. But I think that's a great skill to take with us because conflict will happen. But to be able to speak it out loud and then move forward and then, go ahead and get back to playing and doing whatever it is.
Yeah, I never thought about that, Bindi, but that's a big part of toddlerhood is learning to say you're sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. And I heard somebody describe like growing up as like when you were 5 and then you became 6, the 5-year-old didn't disappear. You just grew. And she said it was kind of like the rings of a tree. The 5-year-old's in there, the 6-year-old's in there. You've just grown around that. And so sure, you're more flexible, you're more patient, you know how to wait on things, but the needs are still there. So that need for forgiveness is still there. And the need to extend it is still there. And the need for compassion and all of that is still there. And I think sometimes we think, well, we're adults now, like we get to act differently, or like we can shove that aside. That's not that important, but it really is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I was thinking about for toddlers is we don't expect them to be successful on the first try. Like we're always cheering toddlers on, and whatever they do is worthy of a cheer. Even just trying is worthy of a cheer. And I was thinking about indulging ourselves as a toddler. That would mean being gentle with ourselves, with our failures, in quotes. Like, I think we can be so hard on ourselves, like trying something new. You try a new recipe and it flops and you have to serve a burned dinner or something that doesn't look that great to your family. Instead of beating yourself up or saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm a terrible cook, just like, I tried. It's my first time to ever try this. Next time I would do it a little bit differently, but just being gentle, with our failures. I think if we're going to treat ourselves like a toddler, that would be one thing that we could take the example of.
Yeah, I put that too, to try new things and then give yourself permission to fail. And it kind of ties into being kind to yourself too. I thought about that. Like, I wouldn't tell my grandson, you're hopeless or, or, like you're not good at that. I just wouldn't say that. You would just be finding everything you can to encourage them. And we're really good at knowing, what children are capable of. And we wouldn't set expectations ridiculously high, like of what they can manage. Yet I expect myself to be able to do all sorts of things with unrealistic standards and unrealistic timeframes. So I think we could be kinder to ourselves. Like what we wouldn't say to our 4-year-old, we shouldn't say to ourselves. But we do. I do. Yeah.
Right. I know with my toddlers, one of the biggest lessons that I wanted them to learn is I wanted to teach them about God. And I remember telling them, how God made the trees and God made the sky and God made the clouds. And look, God brought the rain. And it was teaching them how to pray. And it was having little story Bible books, and talking about God's faithfulness to David and God's faithfulness to Jonah, and, different stories like that. And I remember hearing a story that the pastor said one time, and he said there was a little kid in church and he was being very disruptive. And the mom was like, sit down, you're disrupting everyone. And he didn't want to sit down. And finally, she forced the kid to sit down. And he said, fine, but I'm standing on the inside. And and I think about that because maybe on the outside, we're going through the motions, and maybe we're doing the right motions, or maybe we're even saying the right things. But having an attitude and a heart to fully surrender to God, to look and see him in the dailiness, look and see him in what's happening around me, to look up, when life gets hard, and look at the clouds and look at the sky and remember that he made it and that he's in charge, and to get my Bible out and read it and see him in it and give him my problems. And so just honestly being fully surrendered on the inside, not still trying to stand up when he's trying to do something new or different in my life.
It makes me think of a childlike faith, like children are so trusting and so eager to believe, and things are simple to them, and that's a good reminder as adults. One other thing that I thought about was a toddler needs time to transition. Like when you're with the toddler and you're planning to leave someplace or go somewhere else, you give them time to adjust to that transition. Like, okay, we're leaving in 5 minutes. And I thought about well, why do we do that? And it's because we know they're going to have trouble leaving those toys or those friends or that playground. They're going to have to let go of something. And then there's going to be this period of time before the next thing happens. And they're kind of not liking that. And I thought, wow, that is exactly where I am right now. I mean, sorry, but all my things have the same theme.
That's okay.
Sorry, not sorry.
But I noticed this the last time we took our grandson to the zoo. We went into this exhibit and he saw, I think it was in the bear exhibit, but they had a little glass window with an aquarium. And he sat in that window and just looked and looked and looked, and he didn't want to leave. And that was the only thing we had seen. It was okay, let's go see the monkeys. Let's go see the giraffes. Let's go, and he just didn't want to leave. And I thought that is so true. In his little mind with his limited experience, he couldn't see that anything was worth letting go of this. There's what could be better than this. And I think we sometimes think, what could possibly be around the corner that would be as good or better than where I am now? And for me, I want to look backwards because it's not so good right now, and so just keeping that picture in that the transition is not where you're going to stay, that you have to let go of some things and then you have to be ready to grasp on to new things. And I think it's just hard for humans of any age to move and transition, and because you're leaving something behind and trusting that you'll get somewhere new and good. And that can be like grief and loss. That can be empty nesting. That could be moving, aging. That could apply to a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah. I mean, they say, and it's true of me and true of a lot of people, we just don't like change. And I think that's because we're afraid that what we have right now is better than what we're going to get. So why not just stay right here?
Right.
Yeah. It's like why Pepper would sit there with her coloring books instead of going to Disney. This is good.
Yeah.
Because she can't imagine the better. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I know. The older I get, the more I deal with fear. And it's I have to remember, God's brought me through a lot of things, and I can trust him to be faithful, and I can trust my children in his capable hands. But it's easy to develop more fear as we get older, because as you go through things, you realize like life is so fragile. People are fragile. Relationships are fragile. Nothing is guaranteed. And you're like, what's the one constant? Well, it's the Lord, and that's it. But yeah, it's really easy to be afraid and not just jump into something new.
Yeah.
We've all said we don't want to turn into the grumpy old lady. So
right. I think toddlers needing transitions, allowing time for transition is really true in my life. I find that the older I get, the more time I need between transitions. And you guys might have noticed this, and I don't know why this comes to mind as an adult, but like, how many adults pull in their garage and then sit in their car for a few minutes? Like, we don't want to transition. Like, we don't want to transition to the next thing. I don't want to unload the groceries. I don't even want to go in there and greet the dog. Like, I'm not ready to transition to a new thing. Like, I just got done with this thing. And even if I'm going in for a good thing, like, how many of us sit in the car because we don't want to transition to the next activity or part of our
really
day?
Funny that you said that, because I just read somebody, like some grieving person, talking about that. I sit in my car sometimes 30 minutes when I get to a place. It's easier to just sit and listen to this song or scroll on my phone. It's like, why am I doing this? There's just this great comfort of being in my car.
I think it's that you don't want to transition to the new thing.
Right. It's like, I don't want to get out and go in here.
Also, it's a very safe bubble. Like, sometimes I can't sit still if I'm at home, but if I'm in the car, and I just need a minute. Like, I'm more apt to give myself permission to sit there as opposed to being at my home and going and sitting down and being still. At home, I do try to take that transition. I'll go out on my porch swing for just a few minutes, or I'll walk barefoot in my grass for just a few minutes. I try to be mindful, but it's hard to give ourselves that transition time. But it's one of the healthiest things you can do is allow yourself time to transition.
Yeah.
I think it is about the transition, because then when I get into Target, I'll stay there forever.
Right.
I'll go down every aisle,
like now you're fine in there too. That's right.
Yeah, I'm fine at both places. It's just getting between them is really hard.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I was thinking, even right now, this week, I was thinking, why am I feeling so like unmotivated and I guess the best word is just unmotivated, which is kind of how I feel when I pull in the garage on a mini transition. And I was thinking, like, it's because it's a transition time. It's the end of the school year and everybody came home from college, and that's great, but it's still a transition. It's still something different than what I was doing 2 weeks ago. And I still need mental time to adjust. And I know that, like, in August, when everybody goes back again, I'll need another transition. I don't know. I don't know if I'm an abnormal person and that I need time to process transitions, but any seasonal change, I need transitions. Like, when it goes from the old year to the new year, I need like the first 2 weeks of January just to mentally process, okay, new year. I try to not do as many activities, just thinking about, okay, it's a new year. Like, I don't know. I need a lot of time to transition. And I should be more gentle and just say, you know what, if I'm going to treat myself like a toddler, if a toddler needed a week after school, let out to just do nothing, I wouldn't think one thing about it.
Right.
Yeah. This kind of hit me yesterday. I cleaned out my closet, like, transitioned it from winter to summer. Okay, it's been summer for a while.
Yeah.
And I've had all these wool sweaters and corduroy pants, and I just have been so unmotivated to do that. And I'm having to dig through to find summer clothes, And so I finally did that yesterday, and and now I'm loving it. Now I'm loving the new closet. But it took me a month or more to just get in there and do it. And then I think that's why, and I did clean out a little bit of John's stuff, so that made it harder. But it's the transition.
All right. A lighthearted part of indulging ourselves like a toddler is I thought about story time.
Oh.
And I loved the story time, with my toddlers, and they would crawl up in your lap and you would just get to read.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a soothing, comforting time. And honestly, just reading a book is an indulgence.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but I even thought about like writing. So reading and writing and your little coloring book or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so journaling is something that is an indulgence for me. It takes time. Sometimes I feel a little selfish if I'm just sitting there journaling and I'm like, I really could actually make people breakfast, but I don't want to. I just want to sit here and write in my journal and drink my coffee. And so I do see that as an indulgence, but taking time out to just do those things, I don't know. I feel very mentally healthy if I can actually take time out to read a book if I want to, if I need a little moment. It actually helps transition too in my mind because it focuses my mind in on somebody else or something else or a different story in the book. And then it helps me go back to thinking about the hard things and making decisions for my own life, which I have been, putting off. So,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Story
That's why I
time.
love children's literature because they're
Mhm.
good stories and I don't know, there's just so much to glean out of them and they're usually happy. So that's why that's why I like reading this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought, okay, toddlers, we've talked about them in their difficult aspects, but I thought toddlers have some positive attributes. They don't often think about what other people are thinking about themselves, or they don't think like, is this normal?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A toddler never thinks, is
Yeah,
this
do
normal?
I look weird?
Is anybody looking at me while I'm doing this?
Yeah.
So this is kind of a new struggle for me because I feel like my whole identity has changed. Like half of me is gone. So I don't even know who I am anymore. And I feel like when I meet new people, that shows like what kind of image do I want to portray because I don't even know who I am anymore, And I feel like grief is just so misunderstood. I think people are questioning like, well, why is she doing this? Or why didn't she do that? Or how is she doing this? Or how is she acting this way? Or like, and I just I need to cut myself some slack and say, think like a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
There is no normal here, feel free to be yourself and just, within reason to do things and be less concerned about what other people think. That's not usually something I struggle with, but I've noticed it is more now.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Toddlers they try on a lot of different hats. Like that's why dress up boxes are so popular among that age. And right now you're going through a season where you probably try on different ways of presenting yourself in different situations and see, well, how'd that come across? Or, well, how was it if I phrased it that way? Well, how was it if I phrased it this way? Because you're trying on a new hat. Like it's a new, it's understandable, that you would be doing that.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing that I thought about was under the general idea of healthy habits. We've talked about their sleep schedules, nap time, quiet time, getting to bed at a good time. We've talked about getting outside and playing, being nice to people, things like that. So the other thing that I thought kind of in this category is to eat your vegetables. That was one of the biggest things about teaching my toddlers healthy eating habits. And this is what I need. I was just getting my hair done the other day and I just loved how she did it. And I said, I'm just going to need you to step up a little bit and come over to my house and take the snacks away because I am indulging a little bit too much right now. And so just the whole idea of, eat your dinner before dessert, eat your vegetables, making good choices for the things that we're putting in our bodies. Julie, I've got overindulgent parents right now too. Like they're my boundary lines are like whack.
And it's so easy to see why you would tell a toddler, no, we're not going to have that cake first because then you won't eat what you need to eat or it'll make you really cranky or you'll crash afterwards or then you won't sleep well or like it is just so obvious when we tell other people that. But, I need to start actually saying that out loud, like, no, Julie, you don't need that ice cream before bed.
No.
You already had 2 cookies. Like, no.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
one thing, this is kind of superficial, but I thought about, you're always worried if your toddler is properly dressed, like not too hot, not too cold. And so I know about myself, I'm always cold. So I always have something warm to wear, even in the summer. Like I'm going to have honest, when I switched out my winter and summer clothes, I left out sweatshirts and long sleeve shirts because I don't even like the cold of the air conditioning. Like I want the air conditioning on, obviously,
right.
But I don't like that crisp, cold feeling. I like to be cozy, and toddlers, I think that's really, they always like to be comfortable. And so comfort is a priority for me, especially now. And so this weekend, I went on this backcountry, not camping, but I went to a backcountry lodge where I had to carry everything in on my back. And I took so much extra stuff. Because it was going to be like 60 degrees at night and it was going to rain. And so I wasn't going to be uncomfortable. I wasn't going to have wet shoes and wet socks and nothing warm. So, I know that about myself, that comfort is a priority. And sometimes I have to pay the price by carrying all that stuff around, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
Good job.
I do tend to treat myself like a toddler in that area. Like I try to have emergency snacks in the car and an extra sweater in the car. And I have an extra pair of old sneakers in the car and a leash for Clara in the car in case I forgot mine. Like I'm always trying to think ahead. And I don't know if that is because of 5 kids over the years, you had to always think ahead. And so now I just am in the habit of thinking ahead of everything. But, it's like
I used to think about the diaper bag, the outing bag, everything
like,
you had
do
to
I
have.
have the things that I'm going to be comfortable with? Like I was thinking about toddlers, they want to be tucked in and they love to be cuddled. And I think that we can be gentle with ourselves. And, like last night, I said I was going to bed at 10 or so, but really I stayed up till 11:30 in my bedroom by myself doing whatever I wanted. And my daughter said this morning when I said I went to bed at 11:30, she goes, "You did?" And I think she was surprised that I said I was going to bed, but I just needed to be by myself in my bedroom. And if I say I'm going in my bedroom and I'll be up for the next hour and a half, well, I'm going to get 10 texts and, well, I need help with this, or can I come in? And it's like, I just really needed to tuck in and cuddle with myself and Clara and watch a show. And like, and I was thinking about preparing for this episode.
Cozy time.
Like, that's okay to treat myself like a toddler. Like I don't need to be busy right up until the second I close my eyes. And I get better sleep if I just can, have a little bit of time by myself before bed too.
Yeah, because you want things to quiet down before a toddler goes to bed, They're not just going to shut it off, run around crazy, and then shut it down and go to sleep. You have to start thinking about that, ease them into sleep.
It probably comes back to that transition time,
Yeah.
Yes.
My mind is still going. It's not just a physical thing. I have to start shutting my mind down.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that treating ourselves like a toddler and indulging ourselves like a toddler is not a popular idea in society. Did you feel kind of guilty preparing for this episode, or is that just me?
I know, because I didn't think of any of them as indulgences. I thought them all as limits.
Oh, okay.
Like I know my limits. Like a toddler, I don't need to let myself do this, whatever, because that's why toddlers get cranky. But on the indulgences too. I mean, I saw your point too. I guess I just thought about it from a little different angle. But yeah, I guess some of them are indulgences.
Yeah.
Like where you walk on eggshells around a toddler sometimes to get the very best out of them.
Yes.
But also I tried to step it back and think, okay, I don't even need to go there because toddlers don't often think about the results,
Yeah.
So
I know I thought in terms of healthy habits, and healthy habits, really, you're exhibiting a lot of self-control. You know when to say yes and you know when to say no. So I feel like this is definitely acceptable. But I think, with my children, I hope that they see me with exuberant joy and happiness. And I want them to see me celebrating, and that whole word delight that you mentioned earlier. I want to have all the happy feelings and the words and the excitement. And it's hard to kind of go there as an adult, to let yourself go there, to be free to go there. But I feel like that's what separates us, is our ability to celebrate the little things, and to give it words, and to give it emotions. And so I hope that when my children, if they think about me treating myself or indulging myself like a toddler, I hope they see me having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just the delight, of a toddler. I'll just say this is, I'm just going to brag on my son. My oldest son for Mother's Day just said that he appreciated my exuberance and delight in life, and for beauty and things. And I thought that, I don't know, that meant a lot to me, because for him to see that right now, and to say that meant a lot, because that's what I'm trying to do. And that is the way for me to get through this, is that there still is good and there still is beauty in the world if I can see it.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed talking about this with you guys. I think that summer is a good time to try to indulge yourself like a toddler, because I think in summer we do all tend to take more breaks, allow for more transition time, maybe give ourselves some more margin. So maybe listeners, think about treating yourself like a toddler this summer. Let us know what you think about this idea. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm so excited about I'm a Fan because just this week, it is graduation week in my house. My third child is about to graduate from high school. There are a million activities and a million things to do, and all these hard conversations we have to have, and major decisions we have to make. So in the meantime, I'm turning on the Disney Channel, and I'm turning on old Disney movies. This has been an indulgence, and it goes right along with our topic. It's brought so much joy into my house to have something that is so happy sounding on the TV. Like if we're kind of just we're around the house, but we're doing things. I have put on Frozen. I have put on Despicable Me. I have put on Monsters. Monsters Inc. was actually really funny because it's about them going to college.
I love that movie.
Yes. Okay, this has brought all of us so much joy. I mean, every afternoon, like the boys know, like I had on Tangled yesterday. They're like, okay, what's the Disney movie today? Like we have fallen into this, and it's been like a week. This has just brought us a lot of joy. It's lighthearted. It's not difficult to have on. It just gives you all the happy feelings. It's easy. So if you are in a season of busyness or hard or something, just turn on something that is happy and easy and joyful and beautiful.
And familiar. I think that's part of it too.
It is. Like the Cars movie, like that's one of my sons that's graduating. His favorite movie when he was younger was Cars. And so it's like really good feelings, nostalgia, you know.
That's funny because it goes right along with treat yourself like a toddler, because when you go to the pediatrician's office, at least ours was always playing a Disney movie in the background for the little kids while they have to wait. And like they would sit there in those little chairs and just look at the screen. And
yes, that's where we're at right now.
That's great.
All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of this food item that I got at Costco, and it's called grain and celery salad with apple cider vinaigrette. So it comes in this tub.
Oh, that looks good.
And then the dressing is separate. So I just put some in a bowl and add the dressing. I don't add the dressing to the whole. Yeah. So it comes in 2 little pouches. And it's, I would not have thought celery was the main ingredient, because I don't just love celery. It's a grain, it's kale, it's red cabbage, it's chickpeas, carrots. And I see some almonds in there, I think, some nuts. Oh, and cranberries. It's really, really good.
Yum.
And that's just been my lunch for the last couple of days. Like I think it's probably good for a week.
Yeah. Now, where is that in Costco? Is it in the produce cold area, or is it in like their pre-made section?
It's in the very back where they make the stuff.
By the rotisserie?
Like where where the chicken pot pie and the
Okay.
lasagna, yeah, all that. So I think they make it in-house.
Perfect. I love that the dressing isn't already there because then it's not getting all soggy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Oh, I'm
and
gonna
the
pick that
kale's
up.
really small, so it's not getting like wilted or
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
It's the dressing is so good. Apple cider vinaigrette.
Oh, yum.
If you were tasked with bringing a salad to a summer picnic,
Mhm.
perfect.
It would be perfect, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
cold, so yeah. So I have it for my lunch or as a side with dinner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I feel like you could even just buy the rotisserie chicken right next to it and put
Mhm.
some in it. And there's your
Yeah.
dinner.
Everything you need.
You really
Yep.
could.
All right. I'm a fan this week of something. So you know that you've hit on a good clothing item if your college age daughter says, "Can I try those shorts on? And then can you please order those for me?" So I'm like, okay, approved by college age to midlife. So these are from Target. They're called women's mid-rise 90s baggy jean shorts. And they're universal thread and they're a light wash and they're only $25. And at the time I ordered mine, they were only $17.50. They were on sale. But anyways, I always order jean shorts from Target every year. But I was talking to a different daughter about them and I said, but my old ones, I'm not going to wear anymore because these feel like, even though they're the same size, they're cut a little roomier and a little longer. And she said, that's because the style right now is to look like you're wearing your dad's shorts, which I knew they were different, but I couldn't figure out why they were different. But they're really cute. They definitely are longer than my jean shorts from previous years. So the length style has changed. And they are roomy and they're just, I don't know, you can wear them with anything. I love them. They're really super reasonable. So I'll put a link in the show notes where you can order those. And they have other different washes too. And they have black, white, and then I think 3 different color washes.
Wow. Yeah, I would love to see those.
Yeah, yeah. So anyways, all right, you guys. Well, I enjoyed this conversation and maybe treat myself like a toddler this afternoon, take a nap.
I love this. So fun.
I think I'm going to watch a Disney movie.
Okay.
I know. I'm about to do the same, Julie.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.